Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. The F&M Schaefer Brewing Company raises a glass of cold Schaefer beer in your honor. And Lucky Strike's blowing smoke rings at you from the studios of Comfortably Zoned Radio. And once again, it's time for Dodgers baseball, a tale of two cities from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. I'm your host, Peter Trunk, and my co-host is Ron Rabinovitz. Ron, how are you doing?
Hi. Great, Peter. How are you doing?
Great. Everything is great. Great. It really is. The weather's great. The great news about the Dodgers so far. I had my house painted. I got a brand new doggie. Everything is really looking up here in East Brunswick, New Jersey. I'll tell you that. Well, we have a good show. We have a good show on hand tonight. We have one of our favorite guests back again, and as I'm going to introduce him as Carl Erskine would introduce him, Big Bill Hall. Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, guys. When I'm spending time with you two, I know I'm always having fun, and I hope everybody else likes it as much as I do.
On the show, believe me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Now, I understand that tonight, instead of talking about a dizzy right-handed pitcher in the National League, we're going to talk about a dazzy right-hand pitcher in the National League. Am I right?
Yeah.
Big Bill Hall.
Yeah, you are right, and it's not Dazzy Dean, Dizzy's less talented brother. We're talking about Arthur Charles Dazzy Vance, Brooklyn Hall of Famer, and perhaps, at least for one season, the most dominating pitcher in history.
Yeah.
How's that for a lead-in?
I think, you know what, that's a great lead-in, and let me just cheat here a little bit and pretend I'm guessing at the year 1924, Dazzy Vance was incredible, just absolutely incredible. Tell us about that.
Okay, now remember, this is 1924. Dazzy Vance is 33 years old. He wins 28 games and has a 2.16 earned run average for a club that usually finishes in the second division. But the fact that he struck out 262 batters, that would not be too impressive in today's Major League Baseball, no. But his runner-up, Burley Grimes, 135 strikeouts. And then you look at the rest of the top 10 pitchers in strikeouts in the National League, not one over 100 strikeouts.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Basically, he struck out 21% of all batters that he faced. A couple of guys managed 10%, but nobody else. So basically, striking out 21% of the batters that he faced. By contrast, Babe Ruth, 1920, even though it wasn't his number one home run year, in a lot of ways was his most dominant year. He hit a home run every 8.77% of his at-bats. I mean, there is basically been no pitcher that has had that level of dominance over all his competitors ever.
Right.
So,
it's sort of like Gretzky numbers, Wayne Gretzky numbers.
Yeah.
Like out of this world. Like they look, you have to, when you see them written on a page and you read them, you have to go to another source to make sure you're not seeing something that's a misprint.
Oh, yeah. Or I'd say, or like Wilt Chamberlain numbers, the only guy who ever scored 100 points in a game. But again, that could even be a weird one-night outlier performance. But Wilt also the only guy ever to average 50 points in a season. I mean, how do you, every night, how do you figure that? But,
unbelievable.
I'm sorry.
Bill, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Was Dazzy a one-hit wonder? I mean, just a 1 year? Or did he have some
No.
No, he had several amazing years. However,
okay, good.
Yeah, he led the National League in strikeouts 7 years in a row in the 1920s.
Wow.
But perhaps the most amazing thing about his career, even more than his strikeout dominance in the 1920s, was the fact that he didn't establish himself as a solid major leaguer until he was 30 years old. Let me make a confession to you guys. I mean, I sound like the smart, smooth, sophisticated, worldly guy now.
Which you
I'm
are.
kidding. But when I was a kid, I was a real nerd. I always had my head buried in a book, and one that was really transformational in my baseball education. I don't know if either of you ever came across it. Daguerreotypes, published by the Sporting News, the career major and minor league records of the top players in history. And I always wondered about Dazzy Vance, because you look at every other major leaguer in that book, especially the ones who did make it into the Hall of Fame. You know, they, even in the old days when it was harder to get to the bigs, you know, they would usually do it sometimes in a year or two, maybe 3 or 4, but never as late as age 30. But I think, you know, with Dazzy, it's a fascinating story all in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know, he grew up in rural Nebraska. He was a pretty strong semi-pro pitcher. He made it into professional baseball, was working his way up the ladder throughout the teens, and then so often, you know, talk about 100 years ago, what we didn't understand about the body and especially the mechanics of pitching would probably fill a book. They used him something like that. He started, I believe it was 4 games in 6 or 7 days, and he strained his arm. And so, you know, he had shown enough promise, and he would start off seasons after that, you know, with his blazing fastball looking great, but then pretty quickly burn out. So he was briefly property of the Pirates. He had a big league trial with the Pirates. They dumped him. The Yankees picked him up, and they gave him a shot. I think by the time the teens ended, he had something like an 0-4 record lifetime. And, you know, this was a guy who was destined to be another career minor leaguer. Then a poker game changed his life. Okay, set up for one of you to say, how on earth could a poker game
game change his life?
Yeah, well, and it's not because he won a big pile of money, bought himself a team, and installed himself as a pitcher. No, just this friendly game when he's 29 years old with the New Orleans Pelicans of the old Southern Association. He banged his elbow on the table, banged it real hard, so that for days afterwards he's hurting. He finally goes to a doctor. Apparently, you know, that the Yankees had sent him for medical treatment a couple of times, but nobody really figured out what was going on. But somehow he got to the right doctor. He was treated, and apparently, you know, that has not been diagnosed, but or explained exactly what the doctor did. But Bill James, the well-known baseball statistician and historian, you know, speculates that the surgeon probably removed bone chips and debris from his elbow. And after that, he was able to pitch regularly and successfully. He won 21 games in New Orleans. He made it to the majors the very next year. You know, years later, he said, it was very odd. My arm came back just as quickly as it went sore on me. I woke up one morning, learned I could throw without pain again. And in New Orleans, he teamed up with a pitcher named Hank DeBerry, who really seemed to, talk about, in the later years, we had, I think, Steve Carlton and Tim McCarver. That was kind of a classic relationship where a pitcher had a personal catcher. Well, when Charlie Ebbets came along looking for talent in New Orleans, he decided to sign up DeBerry and Vance as a package deal, and they came to the National League, and it was amazing. Although, actually, the funny thing is that Ebbets was more interested in DeBerry, and at one point he said, and it was New Orleans who was really pushing them as a package deal, and at one point Ebbets said, if I wanted Vance, I could have drafted him a long time ago. If I have to take Vance, the deal's off. But luckily, they talked him out of it. He took the deal, and the Dazzler came up to the major leagues as a 30-year-old and all through the 20s at Ebbets Field for the Brooklyn Robins, not the Dodgers. We can talk about why they were the Robins back then. He was the premier pitcher not only on the Robins, but really in all of the National League.
Wow.
Well, that's an interesting, very interesting fact that you just laid out. I want to emphasize and underline that the year 1924, the year that Dazzy Vance won 28 games, it's 30 complete games that year.
Yep.
To lead the league.
Unbelievable.
Also, what's really funny, now Uncle Wilbert Robinson was their manager.
The manager.
And all of the scribes in New York referred to the Brooks as the Robins because of him.
Right.
But in the 1920 World Series, there are scorecards from the 1920 World Series that have it as the Dodgers. They were listed as the Dodgers on their scorecard in 1920 World Series. I just thought I'd throw that out there. Also, another thing is Dazzy Vance hit 150 lifetime, and he hit 7 home runs lifetime.
Yep.
He wasn't a horrible hitter. He wasn't a horrible hitter. He won 18 games twice. He won 20 games twice, and he is in the Hall of Fame. He was enshrined in Brooklyn's finest year, 1955. He was enshrined in the Baseball Hall of Fame. So he's a legitimate Hall of Fame pitcher. He's not an outlier in any stretch of the imagination. He was a great pitcher. But I just thought I'd add that.
Interesting things. Go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry.
Was he alive in 1955?
Yes. He passed on in 1961 from a heart attack at age 69. Wow. So luckily he was around to enjoy being inducted the same summer, as a matter of fact, that Joe DiMaggio was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Sure. Wow. Great.
Another thing that I find interesting about Dazzy is, most fastball pitchers, guys who rely on a blazing fastball, are done by their mid or maybe late 30s. But, of course, Nolan Ryan is the ultimate exception. But Dazzy kept going into his mid-40s. After the 1933 season, the Dodgers, had now finally officially accepted the name Dodgers. The Wilbert Robinson had stepped down a few years before, and he went to Cincinnati. First went to St. Louis, then to Cincinnati, then back to St. Louis. Finally, in 1934, he finally got into a World Series. Pitched 1 1/3 innings in relief, struck out 3 members of the Tigers, got himself his one and only World Series ring as a member of the 1934 St. Louis Cardinals. Then the next year, the Cardinals released him in spring training, but for his farewell season. Luckily, Brooklyn came knocking, and at age 44, they signed him as a free agent, used him as a reliever, went 3-2, and wrapped up his career that summer at the age of 44. 197 major league wins, 133 wins in the minors, by the way, so 330 professional games won over 26 years.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Now, you know, why we're talking about Dazzy on this program is because of the two popular Brooklyn Dodger pages on Facebook that I administer and you guys are active contributors to, that we featured Dazzy Vance Week at the suggestion of one of our page members. We do spotlight weeks from time to time on various players. And I really didn't know much at all about Dazzy in his post-retirement years. But as I was doing research for material to share on the page, I learned, unfortunately, like a lot of players of that era, long before there was any kind of major league pension, Dazzy, you know, apparently didn't save much money. He didn't have any marketable skills that transferred outside of baseball. So we know the story probably of Grover Cleveland Alexander, the winningest pitcher in National League history, also sadly an alcoholic, but I knew that post major league career he ended up touring with the barnstorming House of David team, but apparently Dazzy was with them as well for a few years.
Wow.
But at some point he was able to settle down in Florida, and, you know, his great passion. I had a lot of fun finding and sharing several pictures of him fishing. At one point, I think there was also one of him duck hunting. Saw a copy of Stationery he printed up, and I love the heading. I think it said Arthur C., and then in quotes and italicized, Dazzy Vance, sportsman. And it also said, ducks, yes, turkeys, no, which I assume means that he was a duck hunter, but not a hunter of wild turkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, it looked like a guy, as more than one member of our groups commented, he was one of those guys who just always looked old, even when he was young. I think the fact that he didn't establish himself as a major leaguer till age 31 might have had something to do with it. But most of the pictures of him fishing, wouldn't you, if you saw them, guys, wouldn't you agree he almost looked happier fishing than he ever did on the baseball field?
Yes, he did. Yeah. With his Brooklyn cap on, too.
Yeah.
Right.
So, well, of course, you know, when you're a professional, I guess, you know, playing baseball, it's not fun anymore. It's work. Even though you have the joy of playing a kid's game, you know, everything's on the line. If you don't perform, you're out of there. But, you know, in retirement, Yep. In retirement, you know, you're out on a fishing boat or on the side of a lake, and it's just you and your pole and your tackle box, and if the fish come, great, and if they don't, it's still a good day, huh?
Right.
That's what they say. You know, the 1924 Dodgers, when he won the Most Valuable Player Award in 1924, the Dodgers were only a game and a half. They only finished a game and a half behind the Giants for the pennant.
Yeah, which was amazing because that was not really that strong a team on paper, but
although they did have Zach Wheat in the outfield.
That's true. Hall of Famer, maybe probably the best Dodger left fielder of all time. I would,
in my opinion,
hazard.
Right.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yep.
Yeah.
One other fascinating thing to me about Dazzy that I learned, or maybe I relearned if I had known it at some point, but does the name of a teenage girl named Jackie Mitchell ring any bells in baseball history for either of you gents?
Not I.
Not
okay,
me.
Well, she became famous I'm thinking it might have been late 20s or early 30s. She was 17 years old, and in a local exhibition game, they had her pitch to the Yankees for an inning, and she became nationally famous briefly by striking out the Yankee right fielder and the Yankee first baseman back to back. Yes, Ruth and Gehrig. And
now I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I did not know until I was researching Dazzy Vance was who taught her to pitch. None other than her neighbor back home in Nebraska, Dazzy Vance.
Dazzy Vance, no kidding. How do you like
Yeah, so he had a connection to that famous baseball story as well.
That's great.
I love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Now, he died at age 69?
Yep.
Did you say he died at 69?
Yes.
Boy, those guys.
Suffered a heart attack and...
oh, man. Those guys, they died so young, some of them. Just amazing.
Yep.
To me, that's young.
Terrible.
I don't care what year it was.
I agree.
Before his time. But he did look old. He had the look, not that he looked like Casey Stengel, but he had that look that he was always 50.
Yep.
When Casey was 20, he looked 50. When Dazzy was 20, he looked 50. So
exactly.
Crazy.
Just something about those features, and probably wasn't that easy of a life. Another picture I came across, and unfortunately didn't have any explanatory detail, but I'm thinking it was probably back home in Nebraska, or Dazzy is sitting there in like slacks, a T-shirt, dress shoes, and some fellow in what looks like a long white smock is giving his pitching shoulder a rub down. And somebody said,
I saw that picture.
I wonder what's going on here. And somebody said probably rubbing him down with horse liniment. Because that's how sophisticated sports medicine was in the teens and 20s.
Oh, yeah. Let me tell you something. When I pitched briefly in the mid-'60s, they used to put that. It was called Capsulin. It was red hot, like a very, how can I say, a very Vaseline type thing.
Yep.
They rubbed it all over your shoulder and your lats in the back and everything, and it was red hot. I mean, it was just red hot. And then they expected you to put your baseball undershirt on, which was wool, and then your woolen baseball uniform jersey on that, and go out. And it was 90 degrees with the sun beating down on you. And let me tell you something. Your shoulder was like 200 degrees.
Oh, I believe it. A later Dodger fastballer, a guy named Koufax, he used that stuff regularly. And I just recently came across a story. I think that actually Vin Scully made the mistake seeing Sandy prior to a game he was pitching of just giving him a friendly pat on the shoulder, and even through the baseball undershirt said Vinny cried out in pain, and it actually brought tears to his eyes. Just that limited contact with the stuff. So I can't even imagine how hot.
Let me tell you something. First-hand knowledge. It was red hot. And there are pictures that you will see of Sandy Koufax hanging from the top of the dugout, his two hands on the top of the dugout hanging down, and you think, well, isn't that funny? He's trying to be humorous. He wasn't trying to be humorous at all. Yeah. He was trying to get his shoulder loosened up. And that's what he was doing when he was hanging from the top of a dugout.
Wow. Yeah, and I hate to be a name dropper, but when I met Carl Erskine earlier this year, he mentioned, talked about treatment for a sore arm, and he mentioned that he used the stuff sometimes too. Yeah, and something funny Carl said to me, and I didn't mention it when we talked about Carl, but it just sunk in here. He took cortisone shots, and he said he really never felt they helped him much. But after his first cortisone shot, he pitched his second no-hitter.
Wow.
But I guess he didn't connect the two in his first start after that. Yeah.
Must have helped him.
Yeah, I would think.
What a pitcher he was.
Yep.
He was something.
Well, Dazzy Vance was quite a pitcher himself.
He
Hall
sure
of Fame.
He was.
Let's face it. I mean,
he sure was.
we all love Carl Erskine. And speaking just for myself, one of the greatest guys I ever met over the phone, and he was so gracious and so nice to me.
Yeah.
He didn't know me from Adam. So nice and giving.
So
and
nice.
Gentleman. It's just sharing and everything. But he was not a Hall of Fame pitcher.
No.
Dazzy Vance was.
Yes.
That's right.
Dazzy Vance was a bona fide, legitimate
Hall of Fame pitcher.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
That goes a long way.
Yeah.
So this
sure.
might be an interesting exercise. Could we pick an all-time Brooklyn Dodger pitching staff? I think you have to start with Vance and who else?
Well, we'll start with Vance and we'll start with Koufax, and then you guys can talk about all the other guys.
Yeah, even though Koufax didn't do much in Brooklyn, he sure,
Well, whenever I get in a lot of trouble. I get in a lot of trouble with my wife and with baseball fans, and nothing to do with the Dodgers with my wife, but that's another story and another show. But with baseball fans, they go, "How can you root for the Dodgers now?" And I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm not going to, like Brooklyn Dodger nostalgia. Actually, what did they do? They deleted a guy the other day because he put a thing up there. He put a meme up there of the Dodgers, and then like a cartoon of a Dodger with an LA hat.
Yeah.
He was castigated incredibly.
Really? Oh, that's
and he was deleted. He was deleted.
Yeah,
I befriended him. I personally befriended him. I don't want to say his name.
I don't blame you.
I befriended him, and I explained to him that although I'm a member of that group, I save my L.A. Dodger talk for other websites, and that perhaps he should have done the same. But all things being said, I just wanted to befriend him, and he looked at I invited him to look at my web page, which he did, and he came right back about 2 minutes later and said, "Fine, no problem whatsoever." He said, "I'll befriend you." But the thing of it is this: when you say let's make an all-time Dodger pitching staff,
where do you draw the line?
If you're going to say an all-time Brooklyn Dodger pitching staff, that's totally different than an all-time. See, to me. And it's me. I'm not saying that everyone should think the way I do, because believe me, I understand the other people that do not believe what I believe. I understand it totally and fully. But when you say to me, Pete, let's make an all-time Dodger pitching staff, I'm thinking all-time Dodger pitchers. And to me, that's all the Dodgers. That's to me.
As long as it says Dodgers across their chest, it's the Dodgers, period.
That's the thing. A lot of people don't agree with that, and I understand where they're coming from. Yeah. I am not an O'Malley apologist. I am not a revisionist. I do not think that it was Robert Moses that drove the Dodgers out of Brooklyn. I think it was 100% Walter O'Malley, and he is the fat, whale-bellied piece of shit that took my team from me. Right. But if you say to me as a baseball fan, I have a good idea. Let's make an all-time Dodger pitching staff or an all-time Dodger whatever. I got to think all-time. To me, my brain goes all-time Dodgers.
Right.
So right away, I'm going to think Baggy Pants and Sandy Koufax.
Absolutely. That's right. A Dodger is a Dodger, period.
Could I weigh in on this controversy just a little bit, guys?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, because, it's interesting, because actually I am the one who ended up removing that gentleman from the group. And it's sad. I appreciated what you did in reaching out to him, and I tried to explain to him the focus of these groups is the Brooklyn Dodgers, and we have differing viewpoints. I mean, like both you guys are as loyal to the Los Angeles version of the Dodgers as to the Brooklyn version. A lot of people in the group transferred their loyalties to the Mets. I know some guys in the group, which I find is very sad, but yet I understand where they're coming from as well. As far as they're concerned, one of them said to me, there has been no Major League Baseball after 1957. So I
feel bad for him.
Yeah.
I feel bad for a guy like that.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel bad for a guy like that. He's missing out on 60 years of baseball.
Yeah. But unfortunately, unfortunately, some people got very intemperate, and that gentleman called other members of the group narrow-minded fools, and that's when I said, nope, this can't go. We can disagree with each other, but we can't start insulting each other, or it just the whole fabric of a group breaks down if you do that. So
sure it does.
Probably everybody's happier, unfortunately,
I agree.
If we go our separate ways
in my
way. Sure.
Absolutely. No question about it. But
I
didn't like to see him leaving Brooklyn, but they did. So what am I going to do?
Yeah. I mean, you can't.
That's right.
You can't change the past. You can't get in a time machine and go back to 1950 with a.
If they changed the name
on
their jersey, you know what I mean? They changed it to Los Angeles Sunsets or something. You know what I mean? But it's still the Dodgers.
That's right.
They honor the Brooklyn Dodgers at Dodger Stadium as well as the LA Dodgers. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my observations, because last summer I went to Dodger Stadium for the first time in about 30 years, and I don't know whether it's because of the fact that Walter O'Malley has passed from the scene, or perspective, or exactly what, but I appreciate the fact, compared to when I visited there several times in the 80s, I think they have done much more to honor the Brooklyn heritage.
Absolutely. Absolutely they have.
Yeah, they have.
Absolutely they have. Yeah.
They have.
Yeah.
But those people, they don't want to hear about that. They don't want to hear it.
No.
They don't want to listen to it. They don't want to see it. I mean, if you say, look at the game tonight, there's 30 guys behind home plate with Brooklyn hats on. I went to Dodger Stadium the last time I walked around Dodger Stadium, both inside and out. They had stuff, Pee Wee Reese and Duke Snider and Jackie Robinson,
all over the place.
Roy Campanella, all over the place.
All over the place.
I mean, but they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They say, well, the San Francisco Giants, when they won the World Series, they brought their trophy back to New York to let people touch it, to let people see it.
But they were
for them,
They were still the Giants.
Yeah, really.
Maybe the Dodgers could do that this year.
Yeah, I hope so. God willing.
I hope they will.
From your mouth to God's ears, Peter.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. You never know in baseball. Houston was sitting pretty. Now the Yankees just tied them up. They beat them again tonight. You can't predict baseball. There's no way to predict baseball. And the Dodgers are up 2-0, and they're back in Chicago, and you don't know what the Cubs are going to do. The Cubs can beat us 3 in a row out here. Baseball is a funny, funny game. You can't count anybody out ever, and that's the way it's going to be. But, staying on subject a little bit better, if I just could go back to what I was saying about, I was amazed when I went to Dodger Stadium, because I went there in 2014 and 2015. And when I first went in 2014, I said to myself, well, okay, get ready. I wore my Brooklyn cap and my Duke Snyder uniform top, but I said, okay, get ready because it's going to be all L.A. Well, I was knocked on my butt
there was a lot of
with all the Brooklyn stuff that's out there,
Absolutely.
both outside the stadium and inside the stadium. It's everywhere. Every time you turn around, you see pictures of Jackie. You see pictures of Carl Erskine in Brooklyn and Field and all that stuff.
All of them.
You really and truly do. And I'm not trying to say that O'Malley was okay or even Peter O'Malley was okay. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say it. All I'm saying is when I see that white, snow white uniform top with Dodgers script on it, with the red, with the blue Dodgers script and the red number underneath, it just gives me a little. It gives my heart a little. Like I don't know if it skips a beat or if it stops for a beat or whatever, but it does something to it. And you know, I would feel very, very bad. And my life was almost like ruined if I stopped watching baseball. Forget rooting for the Dodgers, but stop watching baseball after 1957 because O'Malley took it from me. I'm going to let him win. I'm not going to let him win.
No.
No. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
By the way, Peter, the Yankees beat the Astros 6-4.
I just said that. They tied it up 2-2.
No, it's 2-2. Yeah. I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah. You never know in baseball.
Never know.
Never know. That's right. So, you know, as we watch the Dodgers, I can say that Ronnie and I are 100% behind the Dodgers in this series. I don't know about Bill. I don't want to speak for you, Bill. Are you rooting for the Dodgers in this series?
Yes, I am. I mean, you know.
Okay, the three of us are rooting for the Dodgers. We're up 2-0. The only deal is this. I've been watching baseball for a lot of summers. Not just 2 or 3 or 4 or 10. But a lot of summers, and anything can happen. So being up 2-0 means absolutely nothing. They've won 0 so far.
That's right.
They've won nothing at all. And if they win tonight, they've won nothing at all. Only when they win that 4th game, then they're in the World Series, and then I'll say, okay, let's get excited. Let's start talking about this now. But it's way too early for that. Way too early.
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just thinking of a World Series that I followed with some interest, 1979, I came across a reminder of it, and I hope this isn't straying too far, but on your theme of anything can happen in baseball. Neither league featured a team that I was especially attached to, Pirates and Orioles, although I was rooting for the Pirates in that series because Portland, my hometown, was the AAA club of the Pirates at that point, so I felt a stronger allegiance to them. And if you may remember, that series, Baltimore went up 3-1, and everybody was saying, you know, Baltimore's got it in the bag. And then, of course, Pirates came back and won 3 straight.
Mm-hmm.
Like Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over.
That's right.
It ain't over till it's over.
It ain't over till it's over. Well, remember the 2004 Boston Red Sox?
Yeah.
The 2004 Boston Red Sox were down 3-0 to the Yankees in the playoffs, and they have come off the 2003 season when the kid hit the home run. Aaron hit the home run off of Aaron Boone hit the home run in the bottom of the 9th or bottom of the 10th or whatever it was off the knuckleballer Tim Wakefield to beat the Red Sox once again in 2003. So in 2004 when the Yankees went up 3-0, if I had $1 million, I would have bet him on the Yankees.
Absolutely.
And what happened? The Red Sox came back. They won. They won the 2nd game. They won the 3rd game. And they won the 4th game. So, you know, it happens in hockey. It happens in hockey a lot more than in baseball, but it happens. And,
it happens,
you know, don't count your chickens. I say that all the time. In my 20s and in my 30s, I was, when the Dodgers won the first game of a series or something, I would say, it's over. We won. We got it. We got it now. The dumbest,
How many
dumb.
Right.
How dumb can you be? How dumb can you be? I mean,
That's right.
When the fourth game is in the bag, that's when you celebrate.
That's right.
That's right.
Exactly. That's right. They're not pouring champagne after winning 2 games.
No.
Right?
No champagne.
Yeah.
No champagne after 2 games.
No.
Well, gentlemen, we had a good night. We talked about Dodger Vance. We talked about the 1924 season he had and enjoyed. We talked about his Hall of Fame career. We touched on a bunch of stuff. I didn't mean to cut you. By the way, I'm just thinking now. I didn't mean to cut you off, Big Bill Hall, on your let's think up an all-time Dodger pitching staff. When I said Koufax and Vance, Dazzy Vance and Sandy Koufax, and you said, well, he didn't really do that much in Brooklyn, and then we went off on a tangent, led by me, of course. Led by me.
That's cool.
But
now,
if you want to go back to that for 5 minutes, I'm willing to do that. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's see. Okay, if we're going to do an all-time Dodger pitching staff, both coasts, we start off with those guys for sure. Double D, Drysdale.
Yeah. And Sutton.
Absolutely. Hall of Fame.
And Sutton.
Yes, although I love
Hall of Fame.
Sutton once said, ultimate sign of respect for his colleague, Mr. Koufax, just great baseball quotes. Sutton said, comparing me to Koufax is like comparing a house painter to Michelangelo. But actually, that would be a pretty darn good foursome. And then if you're going to pick a fifth, I don't know, maybe Newcomb, although, he got a late start. He lost a couple of years to the military. He tailed out quickly, but I might be inclined to make Newcomb my fifth starter. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I'll go Newcomb. And then I'll go Erskine.
Okay, yeah. If you're going to have a sixth starter, it would have to be Carl. And then for relief,
Clem LeBine
for sure.
Clem
then
LeBine.
I don't know.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of Dodger relievers who have had good long careers.
What was his name a few years back, Peter? The guy that was lights out. Huh?
Gagne.
You know what I mean? Gagne.
Oh, yeah, Eric Gagne.
Yeah, you got to put him in there.
And then Maranowski and, you had a bunch of guys. Some guys just shown in the World Series, like Larry Sherry. But Dodgers have a long history.
Wonders.
Yeah.
Like Phil Reagan, the Vulture. Remember that one year he had?
Sure.
Where he
the Vulture,
won,
Phil Reagan.
Yeah. Won 14 games all in relief, and they started calling him the Vulture because they said he was like a vulture picking off other guys' wins.
And then you had Mike Marshall.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Mike Marshall, who was here in 106 games. 106 games one year for the Dodgers.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And pitched 208 innings in relief. And think about that. My God, you have starters who don't pitch 208 innings in a season.
That's right. Not only do you have starters that are making $20 million a year that don't pitch 200 innings.
Right. Would you put Padres in there?
I don't know, even though he was
depends on how many pitches. It depends on how many pitches you want to put on the list. 9, 10, or 11, or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might make an 11 or 12 man roster, I'm thinking, but I just don't know. Yeah.
Right.
We're missing
it's a fun exercise.
But it's a pretty good rotation there, I would say.
Yeah.
I like it. But, when people talk about all-time teams on the Internet, some people, again, sort of like our debates in the Dodger group, some people get so adamant, and I say as far as I'm concerned, there's no wrong answer, except when you're talking about the greatest catcher ever. I always answer.
Roy Campanella.
Yeah. Absolutely.
9 full seasons, 3 MVPs. Yeah, and excuse me, plus nobody has ever topped that 57% caught stealing ratio.
Right.
Yes.
Nobody.
He had an arm like a cannon.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
Guess what?
He didn't have to stand up. He could from the squatting position.
He threw from his knee, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, guess what? We left somebody off the Dodger pitching staff.
Who did we forget? Who?
Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kershaw. I got him on my list.
Yep.
I also got Jensen on there. Kenley.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good pitching staff.
Yeah, pretty damn good.
You know, even though people have said through the years the Dodgers haven't had great pitching, I mean, if you could put that staff together, all those guys in their primes, I think you'd do. I think you'd do okay.
I think you'd do okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
You'd do okay.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we've come to the end.
Well, this has been great.
The end of another show. Ronnie and I would like to thank you, Bill, for coming on. We thank you for your participation and your professionalism always, and we hope to have you on many more times in the future. I want you to enjoy watching the game tonight as we get off the air. And Ronnie, thank you very much, partner.
You bet.
As always.
You bet. Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
Let's go Dodgers tonight.
Yeah, let's go. All right.
Okay.
Listen.
Bill, thank you. It's always a pleasure. Okay. Good night.
Good night, gentlemen. Very good show.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.